What up? Back again. I know I was gone for a few days, guys. I didn't upload in a few days, and I apologize. Just been hectic. Hectic. But I'm back now, and that's all that matters. So, what I want to talk about today is the Atlanta Hawks. Because, like you all watching this video, or likely like you all watching this video, I also consume quite a bit of NBA media and content and stuff from, talk shows, First Take, all this stuff, because I love the NBA. But something that got me thinking is, I've been thinking about doing a video on the Hawks for a while now, but I recently saw Trae Young on Paul George's podcast, and he was talking about the 2024 NBA draft class and how he basically sees them all as role players, or at least he said, for the majority of us, from the outside looking in, I guess he's referring to the rest of his, NBA contemporaries. He's saying that, most of them kind of viewed this draft as like, none of these guys are going to be franchise players. And, that's nothing new. I mean, that's been the consensus for a long time with this draft class. I, have gone on record and said, I think, 2013 draft class was like that too, but, you had Giannis come out of it. So it just depends if these, players that they deem as projects, like Zaccharie Risacher and Alex Sarr, if they pan out, Ron Holland could be included in that list too. So it's there's a lot of good potential in the draft. It's just like, are they gonna, what is their floor gonna be, right? And I think that's what a lot of people are judging the draft on. Is like with Zion, his floor is super athletic. If he stays healthy, he's gonna be a great player in the league. But obviously, he hasn't been the healthiest, right? But that's kind of what's going on here. But I find that comment by Trae Young very interesting because, like, I don't know about you guys, but like when an NBA player makes a comment, on like in the media, where he knows it's going to be seen, like NBA players are smart. Like they know that they're going to say something and it's quite possible that it could get, misconstrued or it can get interpreted a certain way. And it wouldn't really be that crazy to me if like the Hawks had picked, like 10th where they were supposed to pick. They had the number one overall pick. Like the number one overall pick in this year's draft is on your team in Zaccharie Risacher. And if anything, even if you thought that, if you're Trae Young, like you shouldn't go out there and say that, they're all just basically going to be role players, or at least that's what we think they're going to be. Like, no, you should be like boosting up this guy who clearly has already had a lot of other people saying that, like, oh, who is this guy? No one knows who the this number one pick is. He's the number one pick with the least amount of Instagram followers, whatever, like all that bullshit, right? So if you're really about your team, I would imagine that you want to come out and make a statement that's going to, boost him up, and who cares about what other people are going to interpret it as? It's about like, you're in the media, you're going on record talking about this guy is going to be good, right? But he didn't really take the opportunity to do it, and he didn't say anything negative about Risacher, but he didn't take that opportunity. So what this makes me believe is that Trae Young knows something that we don't, which is, typical. I'm sure NBA players that are actually in the NBA know a lot more about what's going on in their team environment and around the league than most fans do. But it makes me feel like either Trae Young knows that he's going to get moved or Risacher is going to get moved. And I honestly think both scenarios are likely. I honestly think, though, for the Hawks, it might not be the worst idea for them if they want to keep Trae Young, they want to continue building around Trae Young. Why not trade Zaccharie Risacher? Like Andrew Wiggins got traded, not on draft night, but Andrew Wiggins was the number one pick 2014. and he wound up getting traded to Minnesota from Cleveland in order so that the Cavs could get Kevin Love. I think it was like a 3-team deal. I think the Sixers were involved too, and they got, you know, some maybe a pick and some other, you know, role players. But, you know, so it wouldn't be that out of the ordinary, right? I mean, it would be out of the ordinary, but it wouldn't be unheard of. And I think, you know, honestly, Risacher's value is probably, if he's not going to pan out in the league, which is a judgment that the Hawks need to make, which I'm assuming they already made because they picked him number 1 overall, you should trade him now if you don't think he's going to pan out to what your expectations are, because right now his value is so ambiguous because people are like, oh, this is the number 1 pick in the draft. He must have got picked number 1 for a reason. You're probably still not going to get as much as you would for, you know, other number 1 overall picks, because everyone has this idea about the draft, you know, this past year being like this terrible draft class. But that's a decision the Hawks kind of need to make, because I think like they're just kind of stuck in mediocrity right now. They remind me a lot of like what the Wizards were doing with Bradley Beal for a long time. And frankly, the Hawks were even better than the Wizards were, you know, during that span. Like the Hawks made it to the conference finals in 2021. But that was a shorter year because it was, you know, after the bubble. They cut the season by 10 games, played 72 games instead of 82. And they made it to the conference finals, Eastern Conference Finals, against the Bucks, who eventually went on to go win the championship that year. But since then, you know, I think they had 2 years after that where they had playoff appearances, lost in the first round both times, and then, you know, they haven't made the playoffs since. But even when they made the conference finals, they were the 5 seed, and they won 41 games. You know, they were 41-31. So they've kind of been mediocre for a long time. Like, I don't think anyone's ever really seen them as like true contenders. And, you know, the reasons that people, you know, see it that way vary. You know, a lot of people blame Trae Young. I personally think Trae Young is a really good player. I don't think he's a bad player at all. And I honestly think that he's pretty like malleable when it comes to like the game plan and how he needs to play. I obviously think he needs the ball in his hands, but he's more than willing to create for other guys. So if you have a, you know, consistent team in terms of talent being spread around, I think Trae Young is a great piece to have. You know, I think Trae Young's playmaking ability is obvious, like honestly just very overlooked. You know, like Tyrese Halliburton has great playmaking ability as well, but Trae Young is also like right there with him, in my opinion. So, you know, I don't know what the Hawks are really doing. I think what you should do is you should, you know, leverage some of your pieces. Obviously, the moves they've made in the draft these past few years haven't panned out yet. I'm not going to say they haven't panned out, but they haven't panned out yet. You know, Onyeka Okongwu is, you know, he's a good player, but he's not really what they expected him to be, and they picked him, I think, 6th overall. I'm pretty sure he was the 6th overall pick. And he's still young. He's 23, and he's under contract until the end of 2028. So they still have DeAndre Hunter. They have Clint Capella, who's on the last year of his deal. I honestly think they're probably going to move him out of there, which would be a good move for them. You know, and he's also, Clint Capella's 30 years old. So I think you trade him to a contender, get back some maybe some draft capital, get back, you know, someone at another position, and then you slide, you know, Okongwu into where Clint Capella's, you know, starting position was. You know, I think Okongwu still has to put on a little bit of weight, but they just kind of have to like pick a direction. And I'm having such a hard time figuring out what direction they're going in. But if they would just either trade Trae Young or trade Risacher, then we like kind of know. Because if they trade Risacher, they're clearly trying to win now with Trae Young. And if they trade Trae Young, they're clearly not trying to win now, and they're trying to rebuild, right? And I honestly think either option is good. I think you'll get further by trading Trae Young, obviously, because he's going to have a much higher value. He has a higher contract value, so you're going to need to, you know, just with the financial rules involved, you're going to have to get back more because the salaries are going to need to be a little bit more aligned. But I don't know what they're doing. I thought they were going to trade the number one pick before they even had the draft go on. But it's strange. I mean, they've made some other good moves this summer. I mean, they got David Roddy from Phoenix. He's only 23. He's still on a rookie deal, team option this year and next year, both under $5 million each year. And he's a good player. He's not an all-star, but he's a good player. They have Muhammad Gay. They have, they got Larry Nance Jr. That's a solid vet to have on the team. They picked up Dyson Daniels when they traded DeJounte Murray. He's got, 2 years left, both team options this year and next year. So they have the ability to make moves. They also have Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's also a lot older than I thought he was. I thought he was like 25. He's 31. I did not know that. But he's under contract for this year and next year, and then got a team option for 26, 27. So I don't know what they got going on. I really don't know what they got going on. I think they got to just pick a direction and stick with it. So either trade Trae Young, trade Risacher. Those are going to be your best avenues, in my opinion, to go down. It just depends on what you want to do. Do you think you can win now if you trade Risacher? In my opinion, probably not, because you still got the Celtics. The Knicks got better. You have the Sixers as well. I don't think the Hawks are going to be better than the Sixers. The Bucks are still in the Eastern Conference. If it were me, I would say, trade Trae Young, because he clearly wants to win, and I don't think it's going to make sense for him to stay in this situation anyway. You've got him under contract for a couple more seasons, so it's not like he's just going anywhere. You're kind of in control of that if you're the front office of the Hawks, but you got to pick a lane. So if you're a Hawks fan, I feel for you. I've been through this before, but trust me, it'll get better once they make a decision. And I think a move is coming. Just depends on what that move's going to be.